Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Les and I are back in the same place at the same time. Amazing. And today we wanted to film a book review that has been many months in the making, and that is our thoughts on Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass. We technically read this back in March, but we wanted to save talking about it until we were in the same place at the same time, because both of us had a lot of feelings, mostly not great feelings. So if you're watching this video hoping for something like positive and you're feeling positivity, there's not going to be a ton of that in this video. So just a warning, this is going to probably be very negative or very ha about everything. So just FYI, before we get into it, it's not going to be a particularly uplifting review.
If you would like to make a well-justified argument in the comments against any of the points and not just a mean, ranty thing to say, you're welcome to do that too.
We know this book is well-loved in the sense that it is the beginning of a series that many, many people have read. I feel like both of us have seen very mixed opinions about it. We have friends of ours that love this book but acknowledge that it is not her best work. Like, this is, I believe, the first book that she published. Yes. So this was a debut novel. It came out in 2012, which was like the height of typical YA.
New phase YA?
New phase YA. So yeah, it falls into a lot of the tropes, but we'll talk about that. So to start, I think the first thing to acknowledge is just overall thoughts of the book. I don't really feel like we need to get into a synopsis too much. I feel like it's going to be more of a discussion than a review.
Like a synopsis of this video, I'm sure there are many, many out there which will give you a far better and far more, I don't want to say positive, but I do want to say enthusiastic synopsis of this book than we ever could.
Yeah, basically this is YA fantasy. We've got our main character, Selena Sardathian, and she is an assassin who gets chosen to compete in a competition in place of someone, and there's a love triangle, there's betrayal, there's death, and
there's her looking really hot.
Yes. So it's very typical YA for its time, and because of that, I didn't have high expectations going into it. I feel like at the beginning I liked it more than I thought I was going to, because I liked the competition part of the story. But as it changed and became more romance focused, I disliked it because I kept feeling like it was repeating the same things over and over again, and I ended up giving it 2 stars once everything was said and done.
See, I was a little bit the opposite. The romance is actually what kept me interested in it. I was like, oh great, we've got some interpersonal relationships here that will actually move the plot along, because other than that it felt very formulaic about oh, she's got to go through this competition, and obviously she's gonna be the one that everybody doesn't think is gonna win, and it's because she's a woman, and blah blah blah.
And like, of course she's gonna like come out on top somehow, right?
Right, because there are more books, and we both went into it knowing that there are more books, and so she obviously lives.
Yeah, and everybody competing in this competition is a bad guy,
right?
Who like, if they die, people don't really care, and there's also somebody killing them as well, and it's like, who is killing them? That's the part I liked, though. I liked the competition. I liked seeing the different challenges. I liked seeing who was getting offed every once in a while. And I did not care so much about the relationship with Kale and Dorian, whereas that was more your thing.
Yeah. Well, you have to have something to detract from, like, I suppose you call it the main plot of the book, and to like move her along. I want to feel like it was trying to like give her a reason to live, almost. Like, she's motivated on one hand by this big competition thing that she's got to do so that she can live and like have her old assassin life back and prove herself, and it's a very like chip on the shoulder type of situation, but also like, oh, there's something more for you. And then it just fed into this whole thing about her like being very hot and like being a woman, and suddenly being a woman was the whole focus of this whole business.
Yeah, and that's when it became like the YA cliches really became strong, I feel, because that love triangle was like really evident. And the idea of the King's Champion tournament, which I liked so much, it became very secondary, and I felt like that whole second part of the book was like, but her feelings for Kale, but her thing for Dorian. And the thing is, Dorian was so bland as a character.
The most boring person.
And I've heard from other people that he gets better as the books go on because it is a series. But like, I don't want to sit there for 200 pages and read about bland Dorian. I feel like if I had to choose, I would probably choose Kale only because he had slightly more personality, in my opinion. But oh man, the writing though, when it comes to like describing these interactions, the writing was definitely the weakest part. And that could be a factor for the, that it being a debut book. I don't know if either of us are going to read the next book to see if the writing gets better. I really don't have a strong desire to do that.
I don't want to sit there for 3 more books and wait for Dorian to get interesting.
Yeah.
Like, that's nice. It's good that he gets better. I don't want to wait around for it. I'm not that invested in him.
Yeah. And yeah, so like in the writing, Kale growls so much.
Oh my God,
he gets described as growling a lot. And I understand it's supposed to be like him being gruff, but you can only use the word so many times before it just drives you crazy. Yeah. The eyeing of Selena up and down happens a lot within the first 40 pages or so, because she's all gross from working in this mine, and then they come and get her to have her compete in this competition, and everybody's looking her up and down. I'm like, this girl is disgusting.
Femininity underneath.
She hasn't showered in months. Like, disgusting. Yeah. And then also so many descriptions of eyes, smiles, smirks on the same page, like crazy repetitive. I know that is sort of a YA thing, is to like always describe the eyes flashed, they did this, they whatever.
Right.
But you can only have it so many times on a page before it's just not good writing anymore.
Yeah.
And so that really drove me crazy, especially the second half, when it focused more on the relationship aspect of the story, and it became much more about describing how the characters were interacting and looking at each other, and less about badass, tournament stuff.
Climbing walls and like whatever happens.
Potions.
Some mystical thing that like envelopes her, and she talks to someone who's not actually there, who might be a spirit. It's fuzzy. That part for me is fuzzy. I also didn't want to spend the whole time waiting to see which one of these dudes was going to help her more. I was just like, you need to pick one. You need to pick one because clearly that's going to be the one that sets you up to win this. And then we continue to learn about the intimate details of what their faces looked like, which is not like the eyes of the window to the soul, but not that much. Not in this writing.
Yeah. And the other thing with the tournament that I want to point out in terms of how it relates to the characters is actually the character that I found the most interesting disappeared halfway through the book. Do you remember in the King's Champion tournament there was a character called Nox?
Yes, and he was like the one who
kind of helped her.
Could help her, and
they were friends. Yeah. They were actually trying to work together to do well. And he had to. She told him to leave because of everybody getting killed. I guess she wanted to protect him and whatnot. But like, I liked him. He was the most interesting character, and he disappeared halfway through the book. I would hope that he would come back and be relevant in the series as a whole, but am I going to find out? Probably not.
Not unless he gets with her, because that seems to be the whole purpose of the men in this story.
Is just to to just be a love interest or to be like an absolute enemy of hers. It's either a love interest or an enemy.
The other thing is that she continued to try, Sarah J. Maas continued to try to put something in place of God. There's something about word and the word verse or this or whatever, and it's always like word be with you or word help you, or it's WYRD.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that, and it's meant to be magical, and I felt like that was sort of like a in-place religious situation.
Like she was doing world building, but very minimal world building, and I feel like the other books probably expanded on it much more, but because there was more focus on other things in the book, the world building was not particularly strong.
Yeah, because we read this for the Femme Fatale readathon in March, and I went on to read the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and she does the same thing in that with a different set of terminology, but she does that same in place of God, like here is this belief system.
Yeah.
And it's a detractor from the story because the words don't make sense, they don't click for you instantly. And like, is this a magical situation? Is this God? What is this? How does this belief system work? What is the initial belief system, and is this one different?
Maybe some people would be cool with that, but other people would be like, but if you're gonna hint at this, give me more. Like, expand, make the world more full. you know.
It is what it is for 2012. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. If we had read it in 2012, I feel like our reviews of it would probably be better.
Yeah.
Not only because we just wouldn't have read as much, but also because we would have been younger too. And this skews, I think, for a slightly younger audience. It's not like really young YA kind of book, but it feels, just the writing style, I think, gives it that vibe of being a bit younger. There are many other YA books nowadays that I would recommend in place of this if you're looking for a YA fantasy.
Next gen YA.
But if you haven't read it and you're just watching videos to get opinions and you're big into romance, then this book might appeal to you because romance is a huge part of it.
And we don't know what happened. There are like 8 books here on the back, and I don't know, this is a different series, but like the other 6 of them here, there could be more romance in those. It could get better. It could get better written. You might like that. Who knows?
But the first book, I'd say, is definitely a bit of a slog to get through. And there are so many other books out there that I would rather spend my time on than trying to get through this series until I finally got to a book that I liked.
Exactly.
So as I said at the beginning, I gave it 2 stars, so definitely was not particularly impressed. What did you end up giving it?
I think I gave it 2.5.
Yeah, I think just because you did like the romance more and...
Yeah, I kept it going. I think I was more pulled along by it than you were. Because it is written to have that ease of readability. It's not going to make you struggle and try and figure out what's happening. Although you do struggle and try and figure out what's happening sometimes because there's so many different words that you have to figure out with the pronunciation guide in the back. So.
Oh, fantasy.
Yeah.
In conclusion.
Neither
of us were particularly impressed. I'm sure there are many of you out there who felt the same way. Feel free to share your grievances down below. I imagine the comment section will be a bit spoilery, so just an FYI.
If you don't want to know, don't take a look. If you do have a well-justified argument as to why we're wrong, well-justified argument, then feel free to explain it for us, because I think that would be, we might have our perspective changed.
A little bit.
I doubt it, but we could try.
I'm willing to, like, hear out why people liked it.
Yeah.
Especially if you've reread it recently.
Right, because it's been a number of months for us.
Yeah, or if, like, you read it in 2012 and then you just reread it because the last book came out semi-recently, you know, like, tell us your thoughts, then versus now. I'd be curious for somebody who read it during its initial release when a lot of YA was still kind of like this, versus now where I feel like we've taken a lot of steps forward.
Yes.
As always, all of our links are in the down bar, so you can go check those out if you feel so inclined. Thank you guys very much for watching, and now it's time to bring this video to a close.